So, always the comedian, Will. Okay, so Ron, let's talk about your career and sort of your back and forth between drama and comedy. Was that by design, or was that sort of just the way it kind of worked out for you?
No, I don't. None of it was by design. Especially in the beginning, it's like you just do anything that anyone lets you do. You know, and I don't think I ever really fit perfectly well into the comedy world or the drama world. And I don't think there's a huge, when you're acting, I don't really think there's a huge difference.
Yeah.
Because there's funny people in life, and so you can be in a drama. I felt like I was doing almost more comedy work in Band of Brothers, you know, like I one-liners and stuff, than Office Space, where the whole first act, my job is just to be miserable.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
well, in some ways, this is a role that you're kind of familiar with, sort of someone who's sort of tragically comedic, and that's Loudermilk in a nutshell. What drew you to this project?
I really like the voice of the character, and just the idea, that these guys would write somebody who really says anything he thinks, doesn't have a filter, comes off really abrasive, is kind of a miserable son of a bitch. With the twist that then his job is like helping people, you know.
Yeah.
It seemed like there was just a lot of room for fun in that.
And Peter and Bobby talk about. I mean, Ron ultimately seemed like the perfect guy for the job because this role does require some real tragedy, some real drama, in addition to some really funny moments.
Yes. No, but you know what's funny? I think what's great about Ron is that he has just an innate likability, which I think comes through in all of his roles. I'm sorry, no offense.
No, that's all right.
I know it came off bad, but but I think in a character like this, who says and does, like he says, all these awful things, you're still gonna kind of like him just because you like Ron, and I think that's a big part of it.
The moment he does the chair riff with his neighbor, he suddenly, he was a dick a second ago, and suddenly you love the guy.
Yeah, all right. Yeah.
Well, so Bobby, talk a little bit about this idea, where it came from, and how you and Peter hooked up on this.
Yeah, well, I liked, like we talked about, these characters that are kind of like lovable bastards, I guess you'd call them, where they do these things because they're funny or they're smart or both. You kind of can't help but like them, and then added in that he really is helping people, and we use this phrase that he's like a drunk whisperer. Like he can help these people, but he can't help himself, and I think that's a very appealing character, and then building the world around that and his journey, helping others while still just fucking everything up for himself is a big thing. And then Pete read it and liked it, and we got together. And at the time, it was only a pilot, so there wasn't any, like, we just developed it and had the other episodes broken. And it was a great experience to kind of like go from this to this,
Yeah.
you know.
And Peter, TV, I mean, obviously you've spent most of your career in film. You're starting to dabble more in television. Talk a little bit about that and how this is sort of a avenue for you.
Well, when I got into the business, I had zero interest in doing TV because TV sucked back then. It was horrible. You had like one good show every decade. You had Cheers, and then you had Seinfeld, and then you had Friends. It was like it really was hard to get on a good TV show, and I didn't want to do it. And I knew even the guys who did do it had their daily battles with the networks to try to keep it at that level. So film just seemed natural. But now TV's way better than film. Film has become just superheroes and sci-fi. And TV, the whole binge watching thing is a whole new genre, and you're able to accomplish a lot more. You could do it, like, no one's going to go to the theater and watch a 5-hour movie, but they'll watch 10 of these in a row, hopefully, in their home, or, shows in a row, which will be 5 hours, and they're happy to do it, and you can accomplish more. Like, I actually, the pilot in this episode, I have to tell you, I think it's the worst episode of the whole thing, because we're trying to set up so much in that episode, but where this show goes, I love. I think we're able to do something that, you can do in TV now that you couldn't do 15 years ago. Have a really full story and many twists and turns, and so I wanted to do something like that. And when I read this character, I thought that's the show I want to do it on.
A lot of film folks who move over to TV, they kind of see it as a long film. Do you see it as a long film, or is it still episodic in your mind?
The way we wanted it to be is that if you just never watch it and you turn on episode 6, you should be able to enjoy that. You shouldn't be lost because it's not a soap opera. On the other hand, if you watch the whole thing, there's a whole different story that you're going to get that's way better. But you can just watch one episode at a time out of order, and I think you'd enjoy it. They do have each episode has beginning, middle, and end.
Will, you and Peter have worked together several times. Are you sort of his sort of secret weapon, or talk?
Move this close.
Will's my muse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk about
Anytime
that.
Pete and Bob write, I'll usually remove. Sometimes you want me to get full nude, but I'll just remove some clothes. I'll hang out on the Shays Lounge in his lovely home in Ojai, and magic happens. And then we do some writing. No, I don't know. I was.
I almost was responsible for his death, actually, at one point.
Yeah, that's
right now on the stage, actually.
Yeah.
You did, yeah. He did score this chair, as they say, for comedic effect. That was all on purpose. Yeah. I'm actually only 180 pounds. This is. No, yeah. Pete almost ran me over outside CBS. After and we had done the Three Stooges and had worked together, and I'm very fond of Pete, and then he almost ran me over. And and then I.
Was that on purpose?
I was buzzing along, and all of a sudden, he's right in front of me. He just doesn't look, because I guess I would have been in the wrong. I think I was running a stop sign, but it didn't matter. He would have been dead. Yeah. So I tell him, like, right or wrong, you got to look, man. Were you crazy?
And I gave him that Marcellus Wallace, like, severe look with I dropped the donuts, and he did the Bruce Willis and backed up.
He actually
and then
had
we shot at each other. And
he had his hands on the hood of the
yeah, I
car.
did have my hands on the
on the
What
hood.
hell are you?
And
Yeah.
I was like, hey, Will,
Hey, what's up?
you want to do a show?
Would love to. That's really what happened. He told me about the show, and he said it's not ready yet. You know how things go, and they'll probably, want Kevin James or something. He's not available, and then like a year later, he called me and said, "We're doing the show. You still pissed about me almost running you over?"
So is this all because he didn't want you to sue him, or?
yeah, there's some sort of some kind of deep thing there.
Well, talk about what interested you in this project.
Well, I mean, aside from getting to work with Pete again, and once I heard that Ron was aboard, reading Bobby's script, it was I could not wait to have the opportunity to play Ben. And I really what I love and what I hope people enjoy about the show was Sam Loudermilk is such a son of a bitch, and but really comes from this place of there's hurt and love at the same time, I feel, with that character, and I love how Ben fits into that, and I loved reading it, and he's a sweet, affable friend, who obviously has some problems, as we've tipped at the end of this episode.
You got the twist at the end. There's
Yeah.
always got to be a twist in a pilot, and you got it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
I die in episode 2 anyway. Here.
Okay. Bobby, I'm interested in your career path because obviously you spent a long time on Colbert, so this is a little bit of a change.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I was there for I think it was just about a year, actually, not that super long, but it felt like 10 years. It's a very, very intense
That's
job.
a great place to be.
Yeah, great people, intense job. But no, it was it's interesting. There's a lot of the generation of material with something like Colbert, any late night show, was great training for this because we got on set and there's a lot we tried on a lot of different stuff and we have to just like generate. There's nothing precious, just trying to make the best show, and so that was a real helpful experience to work on this, having done that.
Ron, give us a little hint on where your character goes, and sort of as it evolved. Was there any inspiration? Did you sort of pattern your portrayal of Sam Loudermilk after anyone or anything in particular?
Yeah, there's a lot of my dad in there, minus the alcoholic part. There's a lot of me in there. There's a lot of like just that critical energy of not liking anything about anything that anyone does, mostly yourself, and so I don't know. It just had a great idea to go like, okay, so where is that crippling, and where might that actually be really useful, and play with that a little bit. I also like the relationship that I get to have with Will.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a little bit of a cliche on a show that you have. Oh, there's the guy and there's his sidekick, who comes down for a thing every once in a while. And I feel like our kind of thing is each guy thinks the other one is his sidekick, And the fact that he's my sponsor kind of puts him in this, like, Sam really holds this guy in as high a regard as he holds anybody in the world, probably more so. So it makes for a great kind of Mutt and Jeff, I think, relationship with those two guys that, to me, feels more realistic to kind of relationships I've had with roommates and, you know, buddies over the years.
And there's a huge arc in their relationship over the first year.
Yeah.
Things change big time.
Yeah, well, I imagine when he finds out that his buddy actually isn't the strong rock that he probably thought he was, that changes the dynamic.
Yeah, it definitely throws a rock in the pond, and you know, without giving too much away, something that was really interesting to me about the way you guys fleshed it out was that this guy who's supposedly so perceptive about people, you know what I mean, and it's like somehow I know this kid, you know, is off the wagon just because he's being quiet. I have a big blind spot when it comes to Will, because that's the guy. If that guy, you know, is off the wagon and not going to make it, it just puts me, like, what does that say about me?
Yeah.
You know, like, I need that guy to be solid, and so there's a little bit of blinders on.
Talk about addiction and portraying addiction and sort of what were the parameters and how you wanted to do this. There's obviously some humor, but there's also some real drama and tragedy in how it's depicted on the show.
Well, you know, this is a dark comedy, obviously, and we wanted to be true to what addiction is. What we didn't want, though, is this to turn into like In Treatment, where it's just devastating every episode, because that's not how it is. You know, it's just, you know, I think when you start with an addict who's trying to cure himself, you start with somebody you can root for, and that's what I like about it. And all the guys in that group are people who are trying to make themselves better. And I love that. I love those characters. You root for guys like that. You know, that's what you do in a movie. When we set it up, it's like, what can we do that you say, I'm behind that guy? And we go way out of our way to set that up. Well, you have that automatically when you have somebody trying to, you know, quit something that's affected their life negatively. So we wanted to start with that. But what we didn't want to do was have every episode them sitting in this room. We don't want to turn into Dear John.
Yeah.
You know, so it's really like 5 minutes in the room, you get to know characters, and then we go off with their lives, and we see how they're continuously fucking up, not necessarily by drinking or doing drugs, but by, you know, dry drunk behavior. And inevitably, Loudermilk gets dragged into it, and it's fun. It's comedic, but there's also a reality to it.
I think the maybe the mission statement or the line of the show actually is early on when Loudermilk says, life's about fucking things up and then unfucking the things that you fucked up. So,
yeah, I think that's something that all addicts share in common, and you know, I think that by definition, the definition of addiction is when there's something that you just have no control over. You know, you can't control it. Yeah. And the thing that all people in recovery have in common is that they have that, and they're willing to accept that and see that about themselves, and then go from there. And to me, that's just a great combination of you know, free will versus destiny. You know, you can look at the whole, like, am I born this way? Am I made this way? Is this my fault? Is that, you know, there's all sorts of. It's a metaphor, I think, for something very deep in the human experience.
well, you guys also gave him a backstory pretty quickly. We sort of quickly learn why he's struggling with these issues, what happened with his wife, and talk a little bit about that. That obviously sort of makes him a little more sympathetic, but at the same time, this is something that he did do. So perhaps it depends on who you are and how you react to what his backstory is.
Yeah, it's like he's kind of like a like a dirty angel. You know what I mean? Like he's got soot on his wings. He's doing something great, but God, I mean, this is a horrible thing happened in the past. You know, and he's you know, he's just barely ahead of his problem. You know, I think that's the thing that we've talked about a lot too, that he's not cured, you know, and he's always, you know, it's right behind him, and he's got to be, you know, on point and keep it together, because he's relying on, you know, I mean, these people are relying on him, and he's kind of got, you know, he knows that responsibility. Even if he'd be like, fuck these guys, he really knows that he's a role model for these guys.
I want to open up real quick for one or two questions from the audience, if anyone down there has any questions for the show, for the folks.
Yes.
I told you that looked pretty delicious, Will.
It's actually what the entire season is about, kind of. Yes. That. No. It is, but it's not in your face. And I think in episode 10, honestly, you realize, it's not until then you see this incrementally having a problem. Obviously, he didn't fall off that day. He's been, he's got the olives. He's full-fledged off. And it's examined very carefully, actually, of what happened, why he fell off, and it's kind of a big part of the season arc.
Yeah, and to your question, I think also that we were really trying to be conscious of never exploiting people's addictions and never using that as like a mockery. It was sort of like that's just our world, and so I think that's an important distinction because it could have been real, awful, clownish, and doing that. And we just didn't want to do that at all because it's, these are characters that are struggling, and we don't want to, make fun of that.
Yeah, and also, by the way, it is early in his falling off the wagon. It's not that day, but it is early, and as it goes on, it gets uglier. I mean, it's not something that's, he's not always, mixing martini glasses. He's drinking out of bottles eventually, and but it's not at that point yet.
I want to ask you guys real quick about working with Audience Network, AT&T. They're really expanding their programming, and this is going to be one of their big pushers for fall. Talk a little bit about what it's been like with those folks.
I have to tell you, it's been like a dream. Yeah. It's been really, really great. Again, like I told you before, the one reason I never want to do TV is because there's so many voices, so many people, executives. They couldn't do much. These guys read the pilot and said, "Yeah, we'll do 10 episodes." We didn't have to go off, make a pilot, and then say, "I don't know, should we?" They just gave us the green light to make 10 episodes, and they left us alone. And basically, it was the four of us and probably our first AD, J.B. Rogers, who just worked it together. We had a couple other writers helping out, and they just left us alone. We shot the whole thing and then came back. We edited it. I remember the first time I got notes from them, I was shocked. There were like 50 notes, and I was thinking, okay, here it starts here. But they were good notes, honestly. There were like probably 3 good notes, and
that's pretty good. Not bad.
No, I'm kidding.
Law of average. That's pretty good.
No, it was the highest I've ever gotten. No, actually, there were honestly probably 30, 35 good notes where I said, hey, that makes sense, and yeah, let's try this. And the 15 notes that we disagreed with, we just said we disagree with that and never heard back from them again. So it's been a pleasure, honestly. They've been fantastic.
Wow, that's a pretty good.
I highly recommend working with them.
So you're all in on TV now, or what are you feeling?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm actually doing a film in the fall with Viggo Mortensen and Mahershala Ali. And
pretty strong.
Yeah. It's my first non-comedy film. And it's called Green Book, and it's based on a thing that used to be called the Negro Motorist Green Book. It was published from 1936 to 1966, and it was a book for African Americans on the road, where they could stay, where they could eat, where they could get gas. And it's a true story. 1962, where this black concert pianist named Don Shirley had a tour of the South in 1962, and he was afraid, as he should have been. So he went down to the Copacabana and he hired the toughest bouncer, played by Viggo Mortensen, to drive him. And it's these two guys on the road for 3 months touring the South and all the shit they run into, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Sounds fantastic.
Thanks.
Good. Any thoughts on season 2 of Loudermilk? We getting ready for that? Fingers crossed?
Yeah, exactly.
We are.
Hope so.
We have time for one more question? All right, I'm just going to do it. One more question. Right here.
Ron, your character is probably the most actively visible character.
It's a great description.
I would say it's more like I'm that guy with a thin veneer of this guy laid over the top. So I just scrape the veneer off to go to work, and then it wasn't a stretch. I thought it was going to be a stretch, and I found that it wasn't a stretch at all.
Can we have one question for Will? I'd like to get Will talking. Come on, man.
Wait, I got an answer. Check this out. Ready? Everybody, check it out. Isn't that neat?
You scared me.
Yeah.
All right, question
that's
right,
not where I thought that
right
was
here
going.
for Will.
Yes. Hi.
Sorry, now I'm all verklempt. Your early character in Madison, I know.
Wow.
This is why I had to ask the question because it was the first show I ever sold.
What?
Yeah, I know.
Oh my goodness.
Anyway, your character in that seems very much like if he had aged, he would be this guy. Do you think that's the case? Because 20 years later.
That's really interesting. What do you mean you sold Madison for what?
I was one of the sales executives that helped sell the first show.
Really? Oh, that's amazing. Oh my God. Hi. That's so crazy. Oh wow. Yeah, Madison was a show that did in Canada. I'm from Canada, and yeah, it was like this teen series. We were just talking about it. It's sort of like a Canadian My So-Called Life. There have been a couple times when I've looked at this and sort of thought that Ben is sort of like an older version of that character. And this kid was in high school, and his friends were kind of delinquent, and he was sort of becoming more responsible. Yeah, that's really interesting. And I do feel like Ben does have that. I don't want to be bad. I don't want to be bad. I don't want to be bad. I'll just hide it, and I'll just laugh through it and make some jokes and stuff, which happens a lot in the show. That's very interesting, though. Yeah, no, I only got one speed, basically, is the answer to that question. Yes, every character I've played since the very first show that I've done, I'm the exact same guy. Oh, that's so interesting. Wow, that's weird.
You've also got some serious mustache game.
Yeah. I grew a mustache. I had a mustache. I had a beard right before. I had a beard right before the most boring. What was the most boring panel of the thing? Well, Loudermilk, Will Sasso talked about his facial hair. So then after the beard, I thought, well, let's just shave some of it off and spend a day with a mustache. But then I was like all up your ass going, I got a mustache. Should I have a mustache? He's like, I don't care. I got a fucking show to do. I'm like, yeah, but I got this mustache. And I was sending selfies to Pete going, what about the mustache? He's like, when I see you, I'll decide the mustache. But I got a mustache. Really makes it interesting. Anyway, I think he just left it for me. Yeah, oh, the mustache, yeah.
Well, we're going to be looking forward to the facial hair over the next 10 episodes.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. It goes into. I'll do like a Van Dyke thing, and then I got one of these dudes, and big push broom, silver Wilford Brimley diabetes, fucking mustache.
Well, find yourself Audience Network, DirecTV or AT&T, and watch all 10 episodes of Loudermilk this fall, coming soon to television. Thanks so much, gang.
Thank you very much, Michael.
Thanks for having
Appreciate
us.
it, man. Good man.
Thank you.